Verses 26 to 43, the crucifixion. As they led him away, they seized Simon from Cyrene, who was on his way in from the country, and put the cross on him and made him carry it behind Jesus. A large number of people followed him, including women who mourned and wailed for him. Jesus turned and said to them, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me. Weep for yourselves and for your children. For the time will come when you will say, 'Blessed are the barren women, the wombs that never bore, and the breasts that never nursed.' Then they will say to the mountains, 'Fall on us,' and to the hills, 'Cover us.' For if men do these things when the tree is green, what will happen when it is dry?" 2 other men, both criminals, were also led out with him to be executed. When they came to the place called the Skull, there they crucified him along with the criminals, one on his right, the other on his left. Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." And they divided up his clothes by casting lots. The people stood watching, and the rulers even sneered at him. They said, "He saved others. Let him save himself if he is the Christ of God, the chosen one." The soldiers also came up and mocked him. They offered him wine vinegar and said, "If you are the King of the Jews, save yourself." There was a written notice above him which read, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. "Aren't you the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other criminal rebuked him. "Don't you fear God," he said, "since you are under the same sentence? We are punished justly, for we are getting what our deeds deserve. But this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." Jesus answered him, "I tell you the truth. Today you shall be with me in paradise."
He's my Lord. He's my master. I followed him for now 3 years. I'm one of his most trusted disciples, and I count myself blessed to be a follower of Jesus.
Jesus? Jesus Christ? Or should I say, Jesus who calls himself the Christ, the Son of God? Can't see what good that does for us in here. What would he know about the real world? He can't know what it's like to be me, a prisoner, condemned to death. Still, he may soon know enough about that. I've heard some rumours, you know.
I've heard rumours, you know, and I think that Jesus has too. He's been talking about some strange stuff. Hard to understand, but I know that the priests are out to get him. Well, I'm ready to stand up for him. I'm not afraid to fight.
I'm not afraid to die, but I don't deserve to be executed. I mean, sure, I killed those people, but they had it coming. Anybody else would have done the same. Justice, it means nothing to me.
Me? Me, Lord? Surely not me. You say, I will deny you? But you're wrong. I'm strong. I'll follow you till death if need be. Just wait and see. I'm the greatest follower you'll ever have.
They caught him. I can hear them giving him hell down there. I guess he must know now that he's not the Son of God.
He must have been wrong. Things are not going the way that I planned. They took him, and I watched from a distance. I suddenly had so many doubts.
And I laughed as I heard the guards mocking him. Are you the Son of God?
I cringed as I heard the question asked, weren't you one of his disciples? I was confused, scared, my strength was gone. I had to deny him again and again. And then I saw him. The pain was unbearable.
The pain was unbearable. It shot through the tendons in my hands and my feet. Every breath was torture as I hung there on the cross, an unwelcome reminder that I was still alive. And then I saw him on the cross next to mine. His resolve was unmistakable.
I had to run. I was a wreck. I broke down and sobbed heavily. Suddenly I saw everything so clearly.
Suddenly I saw everything so clearly. I was a murderer and a thief, and I deserved the nails that were in my hands and feet. But this man had done nothing wrong, and yet was going to die anyway. His love spoke louder than any words that his claim was true. This man was the Son of God.
In the height of my pride, I had promised my service to the Lord.
In the depth of my despair, I cried out to the Lord for mercy.
He made me a promise.
He made me a promise.
He said, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times.
He said, before the sun has set this day, you will be with me in paradise.
Despite the fact that there were no walls and no bars, I have never felt so trapped.
Despite the fact that I hung on a cross, drawing my last breath, I have never felt so free. The 3 crosses were erected in close proximity to each other. Jesus in the middle and a criminal on either side. The pain of being there, physically nailed to a cross and exposed not only to the elements but also to the taunts and jeering of the crowd, was almost too much to bear. How could a man hold on to life in such circumstances? It was hopeless. There was no longer any possibility of escape. This would clearly be the end. Maybe it was that finality, the absolute assurance that the only way off this cross was to die, that made you look at both life and death more squarely than you'd ever looked at them before. There was no room left for pretending, no possibility of escape, no future to dream about or to make plans for, no hope for, well, just no hope. Life was over, and all that might have been could be no longer. He'd spent his life plotting and planning how to live at the expense of others. He was all that mattered to him, and everyone else was only there so that he could lie, cheat and steal from them, serving only his own needs and having no concern for the inconvenience or the loss or pain that he might have caused to others. He'd lived consistently selfishly, with no thought for anyone but himself. But now At a time like this, with all hope gone, he had been brought face to face with someone who, even at this moment, had somehow got under his skin, caused him to think afresh about himself, and confronted him with a new perspective on life. It was too late, of course. Nothing he could do about it now. But it disturbed him nonetheless. When he and his criminal partner had been loudly protesting their pain, this man had quietly accepted what was happening. While it had taken a number of soldiers to hold them down as they'd driven in the nails, this man had not even struggled, but borne the pain with incredible dignity and composure. As the crosses had been raised to the vertical position and the two of them had been oscillating between screaming and moaning, this other man had been audibly praying, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing." Why would he pray for forgiveness for them when he was being crucified at their hands? And then there'd been the taunts of the crowd. He saved others. Let him save himself if he's the Christ of God, the chosen one. The chosen one, they said. The Messiah. Could it be so? If so, then he really could save himself. And maybe if that was the case, he could also save him and his criminal partner as well. The sign above his head, nailed to his cross, said, "This is the King of the Jews." The soldiers too were mocking him all about that. They were saying, "If you are the King of the Jews, save yourself. Prove it. Let's see." But there was something different about this man, something that set him apart. He was so calm, so accepting, so seemingly conscious and thoughtful of others, and somehow oblivious to himself and his own extreme needs. There was something in the way he looked at everyone, and even occasionally in the way he looked at the two men dying with him. It all became too much for him when he heard the man on the other side of the central cross join in the banter, which now seemed so completely unfair, so insulting, so obviously, well, so wrong. "Aren't you the Christ? Save yourself and us." Suddenly he couldn't help himself. The words were spoken almost before he was aware of what he was saying. "Don't you fear God?" he said. Since you're under the same sentence, we are punished justly for what we're getting. We're getting what our needs deserve, what our deeds deserve. But this man has done nothing wrong." And then he said to Jesus, "Remember me when you come into your kingdom." The light had suddenly turned on. It was like a miracle had occurred within him. The issues of life and death were suddenly clear. For the first time in his life, he actually understood. And he heard Jesus say, "Today you will be with me in paradise." And he suddenly understood greatness as he discovered forgiveness and acceptance in the warm and embracing words of the Messiah, the Christ, the Son of God and King in his kingdom. It was not too late for him to enter the experience of joy that comes with the greatness conferred by Jesus. Peter would also come to understand the same greatness. He would experience forgiveness and go on to live and to teach that greatness for the remainder of his life as a servant of Christ and a servant to others. For the criminal on the cross, it was too late to share the message with others. but his experience can inspire us to ensure that it's not too late for us. True greatness means following the example of Jesus, acknowledging the forgiveness we've received, and serving others as we serve him. It means living life the way Jesus lived it, loving, accepting, forgiving, showing grace. Jesus died so that we might live and learn as we do to make our lives count for him. While it is time, we need to make sure that we do it for God's sake and for ours.